How will I be remembered?
Well, from what I know, you were well liked, John. Respected across the board. And you took over. People felt you changed. Became a little trigger happy, maybe? A hothead?
When we are first introduced to John Sacrimoni, we know him as the middleman messenger for the Lupertazzis with their relationship with the Sopranos. But it's not until later in the series where the true colors of Sacrimoni are shown. Specifically when Sacrimoni's wife is made fun of allegedly by Ralph Cifaretto. But just like how Sacrimoni says to Ginny's brother, how will he be remembered? Was he the best boss the Lupertazzis had? This is a character analysis of the legendary John Sacrimoni. Before we get started, be sure to click subscribe and click the bell to get notifications on upcoming Sopranos content. And be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, the links will be in the description below. John Sacrimoni is a longtime member of the Lupertazzi Crime Family up until his death in season 6. Throughout the majority of the series, he is seen as Carmine Lupertazzi's right-hand man and underboss. As previously stated, we first see Sacrimoni as the middleman for the Sopranos and Lupertazzis, where he promises to keep a healthy and peaceful relationship between the two families that would result in increased profits for all. We see this exactly during one of Uncle Junior's first decisions as boss, where Junior decides to tax Hesh $500,000 towards his Shylock business, thanks to Tony secretly going to John, but making it look as if Hesh went to John first. John reduces the taxing from Junior on Hesh to only $300,000. For a handful of seasons, we saw John Sacrimoni be content in the role of underboss. That is, right up until he planned to take out his successor in Carmine Lupertazzi Sr. However, with the attempted assassination falling apart, John never got his wish in taking over the reins of the family the way he wanted to. However, John wouldn't have to wait long, as he finally got his wish when Carmine Lupertazzi Sr. suddenly passed away from a stroke. However, much like John Gotti, John Sacrimoni ultimately becoming boss of the Lupertazzis thanks to a dispute between him and little Carmine was the reason and the beginning of his downfall. It's here where little Carmine was set to take over the reins of the Lupertazzi crime family once his father had passed. This only saw a mini war between crews within the Lupertazzi family on who should take over the leadership of the family. Throughout John Sacrimoni's tenure as boss, there is plenty of irony, as his devious, egotistical, selfish, and trigger-happy mindset and attitude all become evidently clear to us and to Tony almost immediately as John took over. Whether it was basically interrupting Carmine's funeral, taking over the ports, or getting more and more involved with Tony and New Jersey. And the more decisions John made, the worse he became for everyone. None of these traits or characteristics were present while Sacrimoni was underboss to Carmine, but as soon as he became boss, a much darker side of John was present. But nowhere do we see how devious, sly, and just how much of a calculated criminal John Sacrimoni was. Then during his relationship with Polly that took place during the saga that was the joke about his wife Ginny. Throughout the series, there's no denying John's loyalty and love to his wife Ginny, and John was always holding out when it came to sleeping with other women due to his love for Ginny. During this saga that was the joke, little Polly plays a game of telephone with his uncle Polly while he's in jail regarding the joke about Ginny. But it's unknown to little Polly that John and his uncle have been recently close, and evidently it was Polly who informed John about the joke, although he never repeated it fully as enough damage was already done to John's ears. It's here where John becomes increasingly angry about the remarks made about his wife's weight, as he mentioned previously to Tony that she has always struggled with her weight since having 2 kids in Catherine and Allegra. Because of the joke, John went as far as ordering a hit on Ralph Cifaretto and almost starting a war between the Sopranos and Lupertazzis. However, then boss at the time, Carmine Lupertazzi, disagreed with sanctioning a hit on Ralph Cifaretto due to his ties to the Esplanade construction project that brought in millions of dollars for both families. With John using Polly as a mole during this entire conflict, their relationship only grew thanks to Tony putting Polly aside over the espionage, as well as Polly receiving little to no visits to himself or to his mother while he was in jail. Tony putting Polly aside and no one visiting him or his mother only made Polly trust John more and more as time went on. It's here where John would discover more secretive information from Polly that Tony and his crew had been hiding, such as Tony's HUD scam. This resulting in the Lupertazzis to demand a piece of the profits from Tony's crew because their mutual interest in Assemblyman Zellman made both projects possible. At the end of it all, John ultimately played Polly and got exactly what he wanted. Thanks to Sacrimony using Polly for information, he discovered secretive business deals that Tony had not been sharing with the Lupertazzis, was able to retrieve millions of dollars thanks to discovering this information, and of course, he discovered about how friends of his were making fun of his wife's weight. During the mini-war that took place within the Lupertazzi crime family is where John's true colors began to shine. We watched as Tony Blendetto took matters into his own hands for payback on Angelo Gareppe, getting clipped by John as he was a cellmate of his while the two were away. Meeting to discuss the relations between the two families and to put an end to the violence that was, Tony met with John outside his mansion early one morning where the two were raided by the FBI, leading to John's arrest. Even with John arrested, he still remained boss of the family. This is where it all came crashing down on Sacrimony. While he was once viewed as a sociable, genuine gangster and a devoted husband, it's during his reign as boss where he becomes totally egotistical, selfish, and full of greed, as John Sacrimony completely loses who he once was before, once he became boss of the family. While John was arrested, it was Phil Leotardo who stepped up as acting boss, and both he and brother-in-law Anthony Infante served as back channels for John when dealing with Tony in New Jersey. And when John was granted permission to attend his daughter's wedding, he ultimately broke down in tears towards the end of his allowed time to attend. This shocking scene of John crying ultimately changed everyone's perception of John, including Phil, stating that Sacrimony crying was an estimation of his masculinity. Facing a massive asset seizure by the FBI that would leave his wife and family broke and without their beloved home, John ultimately pleaded guilty, where he admitted he was part of organized crime. During his time in jail, John had developed severe lung cancer due to him being a lifelong smoker, which he would later die from later in the 6th season. In the end, John Sacrimony ultimately started his own downfall. He did so by initiating the mini-war within the Lupertazzi crime family by whacking Lorraine Caluzzo and then panic-killing Rusty Milio, thinking he was going to come after John's throne as boss, even though John was in jail. Once becoming boss, John was a greedy, selfish, hot-headed, quick to take action, and a narcissistic individual. While he always meant good relations between the Lupertazzis and Sopranos, as he provided both families with millions of dollars, was a devoted husband and father, in the end, it was ultimately his ego that got the best of John Sacrimony. What are your thoughts about John Sacrimony? I would love to hear them down in the comment section below. For more Sopranos content, keep it locked here, right here on this channel.